Show off.
I'm gonna start trust you.
No, I'm not.
Let's go, chat.
Yo, what's going on, fam?
Let's
Shout out
go.
to-
I'm a little nervous. I've been doing content since I was a kid, but I never thought I'd share my full story. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. My first memories of gaming was when my dad brought home a PlayStation 2. I remember that being the first time I really picked up a controller, and me and my dad would just sit there for hours playing games. We'd play things like Ghost Recon, Star Wars Battlefront. That was sort of my first introduction to gaming and like third person and first person shooters. And I remember just being completely hooked instantly. I also remember getting a Nintendo GameCube too, and me, my sister, and my dad, and even my mom sometimes, we would just play games for hours. I remember my favorite games were like Mario Kart Double Dash and Super Mario Sunshine. Those were definitely like my favorite games at the time, and I just remember being completely hooked on that as well. That's what really started the gaming thing for me was when I got my Nintendo GameCube. I didn't really have much time to play because I was also like a pretty highly ranked gymnast. I'm a state champion gymnast, and I was a really competitive swimmer as well. And so I didn't really have much time to game other than like on the weekends and stuff. But in about 2013, a mobile game released and I started playing it. It was a game called Growtopia. I was 13 years old when it came out, and I basically got completely hooked on that game. It's like an MMO, so you were sort of able to just interact with a bunch of people, and I quickly grew a following on there. I gained an Instagram of over like 70,000 followers really fast. Then quickly the game got bought out by Ubisoft, and I sort of started working with them closely as sort of like a community manager role. And they sort of came to me and asked me if I wanted to do YouTube for their game to sort of promote it more. And I said yes instantly. And so I started YouTube, and that quickly became my job throughout all of high school and even part of college. And I grew a subscriber count of over like 130,000 subscribers. It was like the coolest thing ever, and it sort of just like fell into my lap, and I just fell in love with content creation, and just having that community as well was like such a cool thing for me. And then sort of in the midst of me being a YouTuber and balancing school and stuff, Fortnite came out in 2017, and I started playing that pretty much as soon as it came out. I just remember it being basically the best game I've ever played, and me and my friends would just stay on forever playing. And we quickly got into like the competitive side. Even when competitive wasn't really a thing, we would play like console queue snipes, where you would basically just like queue in at the same time to pubs, and it would basically be like scrims before custom games were a thing. I remember getting a victory royale back then, and it made my heart feel something that I've never felt before, and it was like the coolest feeling ever. And yeah, there was just like really no game like it. For the next basically 2 years of my life, I kept pretty busy with YouTube, school, sports, and I would just like play Fortnite and stuff just for fun. But it was the 4th of July weekend, and while all my friends were out partying and stuff, I took up a shift at a hardware store that I worked at over the summer, and things took a really, really dark turn. It's a pretty long story, so I'll cut it like pretty short, but combined with the super hot heat of Georgia and working outside for hours, I was basically like overworking myself, and I got this thing called hyponatremia, and it basically displaced the sodium in my blood, and my brain just expanded, and I suffered a really traumatic brain injury. And basically all I remember from that night was feeling in really intense pain in my head, and thinking it was just like a really bad migraine or something, and trying to drive home, and basically in and out of consciousness on the drive home, just trying to make it home because I knew something wasn't right. And got home, and that's basically the last thing I remember, and then went into a coma, and 2 days later I woke up from it. So I ended up being in a coma for nearly 20 hours, and that was definitely the scariest experience that has ever happened to me. And that was the scariest thing that's pretty much ever happened to me in my life. Little did I know that was just the start of how terrible that next year basically was going to be for me. I learned later on that it was about a 20% survival rate from what I went through, and that hit me pretty hard. The coma was rough, obviously, but the recovery after was definitely the worst part, and will forever probably be the hardest thing I'll ever have to go through. Basically was bedridden for for 3 months after it happened, and I was in this constant, what they call like a brain fog state, and it was really intense, and I wasn't myself. My motor functions weren't there. My eyesight wasn't completely 100%, and I had really intense PTSD from it. Basically, every time I would close my eyes to go to sleep or attempt to go to sleep, I would feel like in my mind that I was gonna slip back into a coma and go back into that, which is a completely irrational thought, but that's what PTSD does to you. And I would just have panic attacks every single night. And I basically wouldn't sleep at night, and the only sleep I would get would be my body basically forcing myself to fall asleep like midday or something, because I had a complete phobia of going to sleep and possibly going back into a coma just because of the PTSD of it all. I sort of fell on video games as sort of my one escape from everything going on, because I really couldn't do anything else. And I mean, the one video game at the time was Fortnite, and I would almost use Fortnite as sort of like a baseline of sort of how I was feeling in my brain, and I would use it just as something to take my mind off everything. And sort of in the middle of that time, I basically had to take a step back from doing YouTube, and I also sort of knew in my head that I wanted to take a step back and become a more diverse creator than I was, because at the time I was like a PG sort of like kids content creator, and I knew that wasn't me really. I really just wanted to branch out. I knew it was going to be a risk to take a step and do something else, but with the injury, I was almost forced to do that. It sort of pushed me to expand myself as a creator and just a creative in general and move on to something else, which happened to be streaming. I mean, really at first, I had no intention of branching out and being like a full-time Twitch streamer by any means, but I sort of started streaming just because I wanted to get better at the competitive side of Fortnite. And so that's what I did. I started streaming every event that I played, and just VOD reviewing everything, and that's what I would use. There was no intention of building an audience at that point. It was really just me trying to get better as a competitor and just a player overall, and VOD review my gameplay. I worked hard at that, and eventually I worked pretty hard during like the World Cup era, and I eventually made my first earnings during World Cup solos, which was just super cool for me to make a little bit of money from playing video games. I sort of just like kept streaming from there because I knew it helped me so much. For the next about year straight, I streamed basically every single day to like 2 to 3 viewers. Probably most of them were just complete bots. I don't know if they were real viewers, and I got a really good and underrated trio. We worked really hard every single day, and eventually we made trio grands, which was super cool for me. And during trio FNCS grands and heats, I was like basically one of the only people streaming it, and a clip of me kind of exploded, at least for myself at the time, which I had like 5 Twitter followers or something.
Okay, so it's kind of free then, right?
Yeah, there's a solo right here. There's a solo.
It might be that kid.
Want triple spray that wood right now?
I might have just crashed.
Crashed. Good. Do you want a mini? Do you want a mini? Do you want a mini?
After Trio FNCS ended, I still streamed every single day. I was on a few orgs at the time: Flu Esports, Vanish Esports, 4OK Gaming, but none of them really felt like home until I got the offer from Moon Unit. I've been in Moon Unit for over a year now. I joined in February of 2022. Pupper sort of came to me with the idea and the pitch, and I really liked Teddy's vision with everything in Moon, and it seemed like a super cool fit for me. And honestly, at the time, it was like a really high risk for them to sort of take a risk on a console player, because console doesn't have the craziest exposure. And so it was risky for them, and I'm really glad they took the chance on me coming from console and trusting me to sort of like build out a console roster and find people within the console space to be like a shining light for the community. And I mean, over the last few months, my career has been absolute insanity. I finally became a full-time Twitch streamer, which is just a dream come true for me. After graduating from Georgia Tech with highest honors, I decided to pursue full-time Twitch streaming, and it's been really cool. It's been a really cool journey since then.
Oh, to
I
sell.
feel like he's too big.
Huh?
I want to do something small.
No way.
MrGrifs, you're a genuine dude, but I want to do something like a smaller streamer. You know what I'm saying?
I was able to stream sort of our whole journey through the Console Champions Cup in duos, and ended up placing top 10 in finals for that, and then placing in another finals again which was really cool. Console gaming, in my eyes, saved my life. As cheesy as that sounds, it's basically completely true. And I sort of do everything I can with my partner Daniel to facilitate the best experience and the best community possible for the console side of Fortnite, because that's what I'm really passionate about. And with Daniel's help, we run and facilitate basically the whole entire NA scene for console. We host multi-$1,000 tournaments and are just able to run the best scrims and practice possible and create a really cool community on console. And in total, we've basically spent probably at this point over $15,000 for console third-party tournaments out of our own pockets and from a few sponsors as well, which has been really cool. And I can't thank our Discord staff more for allowing us to do that. And one of the highlights from my career was Aussie Antics reacting to one of my viewing parties for PlayStation Cup. And he's done that multiple times since then, and it's been like really cool. And I mean, the next thing you know, after watching that, he actually came to me and asked me to do a joint viewing party with him for the Console Champion Cup finals, which was the coolest experience ever. We ended up qualing to finals, and I ended up not playing it at all and just doing a viewing party with Aussie, and that was the highlight of everything so far. Aussie Antics has basically been the #1 inspiration for me, and working with him was really just a dream come true. And I'm just so incredibly lucky to be able to do what I do and be in the position that I am, and with one of the most amazing communities backing me and supporting me. What do I want to say to myself in 5 years' time? I think if I were to talk to myself in 5 years, I would say just keep pushing, because I've gone through a lot of hardships in this journey, and I've worked really hard to be in the position that I am. And I guess just always follow your passion, because that's what's always worked out for me. And I've always just stayed true to myself and true to sort of how I was feeling in my heart, and just to stick with what you're passionate about. And plans for the future, I honestly sort of just take days as it goes and take things one step at a time. But I definitely want to become a bigger creator in the Fortnite scene, sort of maybe even attempting to like branch out into like the PC scene, sort of like what Aussie does, but in like a different way would be kind of cool. I definitely still want to stick with console, because that's where I really think a really cool part of the community is. And I hope in months to come we're able to get like really cool sponsors for tournaments and be able to put on some like really cool shows for people on console, because like Monster D-Face said, it's a very unheard community, but there's a lot of people there, so it's been really cool. So I hope I can definitely just still stick to those roots.